This is a top 10 video, the top 10 most frequently seen errors. These are the errors that I have noticed that people will make in Inventor, and by watching this video, hopefully you'll be able to avoid making these same errors when you are creating your parts in Inventor. The very first one in this countdown, and this is counting down from 10, and 10 I see sometimes, 1 I see extremely frequently, and so they're going to count down about in that order. But I do want you to pay attention so that you don't run into these issues in the future. The first one is clicking impatiently. Now, when you click impatiently, you're going to have undesired results. The first one I'm going to demonstrate for you, and you might see this when you go throughout your time in Inventor. When I hover my mouse over the top of this part, the entire part highlights. I can't click on individual faces to create sketches. I can't click on edges. The thing is not behaving the way that I'm used to Inventor behaving. This happens when you come up here to As Material and you accidentally click over here on this little cube. If you hover over this cube, the cube is going to tell you has a bunch of options underneath it, and one of them is called Select Bodies, and a lot of times students will select this as Select Bodies when we do want to have Select Faces and Edges. This is what we're used to, and so if you ever have that happen, Select Face and Edges will fix this problem. So now we're back to the way that we're used to Inventor behaving. The other issue that I find with clicking impatiently is, let's say we go to extrusion 6, and let's say I wanted to edit either the feature or I wanted to edit the sketch that I made this feature with. Well, if I right click my extrusion 6, I've got my menu here, and there, sure enough, there's edit feature and there's edit sketch, but a lot of times people will select edit form. If you select edit form, then you're going to have to wait a few minutes because Inventor Fusion is going to open. It's a different program that's installed on your computer, and this is to edit the form. We're never going to use Inventor Fusion in Introduction to Engineering Design, so you never have to do edit form. Also, once you click edit form, then the icon for this extrusion is going to change to a form icon instead of a regular Inventor icon. So you don't want to ever select edit form, so just be careful not to do that. Number 9. Number 9 is clicking lines when changing colors. Well, let's say we wanted to change some of the colors of this particular piece. So there's a couple of different ways to change colors. We can change colors by going to As Material, and this will change the color of the entire object to a different color. So if I wanted to change this to, say, sky blue, it's going to change the thing sky blue. Or if I wanted to change the entire color to brown, it'll change the entire thing to brown. I can also change specific extrusions. If I wanted to change extrusion 1, for example, I could right click it and go to properties and change the color. But if I wanted to individually select faces to create color change, I can click this face, hold shift on my keyboard, and I can click multiple faces and they will highlight along with it. So I can change these colors by right clicking and going to properties. However, if I'm going through and clicking these different objects and I all of a sudden come up here and let's say I click on this line right here, I've clicked the line now, I'm going to continue clicking faces. Now if I right click, properties is no longer available because you can't change the color properties of a single line. Therefore, if you ever change colors this way, be sure that you don't click impatiently, because if you ever pick up a line on the way, then the colors will not change. So you want to make sure that you always select faces and not edges. Number 8. Over-constraining an assembly. So this is our puzzle cube assembly, and right now it's almost put together, but there are a few issues with this thing. What I want to do is mate this face right here with this face right here so the thing flips over and goes into the spot that it belongs. So if I go to constrain and I choose mate and I choose this face and this face, after I've selected the second face and hit apply, I have an issue. This window will pop up. I see this window pop up all the time when people are dealing with assemblies, especially when you get into more complicated assemblies. If this window ever pops up, I'm just going to tell you right now that the easiest and quickest way to change or to fix your problem, if you ever have a list of crosses right here, these little red crosses, right now I have one thing that is inconsistent. It's an inconsistent constraint. So I just want to delete it, because if I delete it, it'll get rid of the problem right away, and then I can just wiggle my parts around down here, the pieces that aren't put together, and see where I need to fix it. So the best way to do is to click on the little cross, say yes, next, next, delete constraint, and finish. And now my cube doesn't have any of those issues, but it's still got a problem because it's not, not connected. If you ever want to see the constraints for something, then you can hit the plus sign right here and it'll show you all the constraints right now. Over-constraining the sketch will oftentimes have issues, and the issues will show up as little exclamation points. So both of these constraints right here are problematic. There's an exclamation point next to them. Now you can go in and try and fix it, but you can also just right-click each of these and delete it. And delete this. And then now we don't have those problematic constraints. Now, right now, my piece is not put together completely, but let me tell you what I'm talking about with over-constraining the sketch. Now, right now, this piece and this piece are flush, and this one can't flip over. So if I say we're to go constrain, and I wanted to meet this face with this face, this would have to flip over to meet this, and so it's going to tell me that the assembly cannot be solved because it's unable to do this. It would have to break a rule that it's already following in order to have this be a new rule. So if I want to find out all the constraints with my yellow piece, I can click on this. See, if I click on this piece, it'll highlight over here, hit the plus sign. Now I know all the constraints that are on this thing, and I can figure out where I need to make the appropriate changes. But if you ever see that show up, then you need to look at the constraints that are already placed on this yellow piece, and then that'll give you a clue as to where your problem is and what you need to fix or delete. So right now I know that this is mated to the blue piece. So right now this face right here is mated to this face. It's also flushed to the back here. So that means it can't move from the blue piece. It has to stay in line with the blue piece. So that's how we figure out our constraint. Number 7. There are no grounded pieces in this assembly. It is very important that when you create an assembly that you always have a grounded piece. A grounded piece is not allowed to move at all, and so a grounded piece is what you want to assemble all of your other pieces to. I'm going to open up one of my puzzle cube pieces. I'm just going to open up the blue piece again. Oops. I'm going to place it. Okay, now that I have this blue piece here, this is an isometric view. Notice that when I go to home view, my puzzle cube is not in isometric view, it's off center a little bit. The blue piece is actually in isometric view. This has been skewed. So this blue piece right here, if I right click it and go to grounded, notice that right here there's a little thumbtack icon. This means that the blue piece can no longer move. I can move these other pieces all around in different places, but the blue piece is now stuck in place. If you ever have an assembly that has been put out of isometric view, the best and easiest way to fix this is to bring in, place a piece, and ground it, and then assemble everything to that piece. So if I say assemble this to the blue piece, by flushing it, I'll flush this wall to this wall, and now these are connected. And now let's say I flush this red piece to the blue piece. Now my puzzle cube has been forced back into isometric view. Everything is back into isometric view now because it's conforming to this grounded piece. So you always want to have a grounded piece. and you always want to assemble the rest of your parts to that grounded piece. Number 6. Changing the name, the location, or deleting a part in an assembly. Let me explain. If I go to my Open dialog, and this is the folder that all the pieces for my assembly are in. So I've got my assembly and I've got my IPTs. So if I come in here and click on the blue piece, let's say I click on it again, and I'm sure a lot of people have done this, you can change the name. So let's say that I change this name to Blue 5 or Blue Piece or whatever. If I change the name of this piece, first of all, I won't be able to do it while the assembly is open. It won't allow me to. But if I change this piece name while the assembly is closed, the next time I open the assembly is not going to work anymore, because the assembly is counting on this piece being named blue, because that's how it was originally built. So if you ever change the name of your assembly like this, then if you ever change the name of an IPT that an assembly uses, the assembly is no longer going to work. Also, let's say that we escape out of this and keep it the same. If I were to say, take this blue piece and right click it and cut it, and paste it into another folder, or drag and drop it into another folder so that it's no longer in Puzzle Cube, the assembly will no longer work. You want your assembly, because in your assembly, if you look at it, all of the pieces that it's using are right here. Blue, black, red, brown, yellow, and the other blue. So if you change the name of any of these IPTs, the assembly will no longer work. If you change the location of where they're at, they will no longer work. If you delete it, obviously it'll no longer work. There's going to be a hole where that piece used to be. So if you ever want to change the name of something, an IPT or whatever, instead of changing it here, let's say I wanted to change the name of this blue piece. If I open the IPT, now I've got this piece open, the best way to change it is to go to Save As, and then change the name right here, because then you'll have two versions of it. You're going to have the original blue, and you're going to have whatever you name it. Now this new piece, if you want to put that into your assembly, you can go ahead and put it in, but you never want to delete, throw away, change the name of, or change the location of a piece for your assembly. If you ever do, your assembly will stop working properly. So just remember never to change any of those things about a piece in your assembly. Number 5. Trying to overdimension your sketch. So, if I go into this sketch right here on my companion cube, right now this polygon has three dimensions on it, and you can't change this one. I put this dimension on, and then I put this dimension on, and then this third dimension. Okay? Let me delete all of them and show you what I'm talking about. If I were to dimension this line, and let's say I made it 0.25, and let's say that I change this to 0.4. Okay? Now, if I try and change this last one, or make the change here, it's going to say adding this dimension will over-constrain the sketch. Okay, I'm going to hit accept so that we can see this. It's now in parentheses. Okay? The reason that this is in parentheses is because I've already established that this distance from here to here is 0.25. The distance from here to here is 0.4. I cannot change this last distance because these two have already been established. I can't change the third one because there's only 3 segments. Let me demonstrate on this one as well. Let's say that I wanted to dimension this thing. This whole thing I'm going to make 3 inches long. Okay, now I'm going to edit the segments here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 segments. Okay, let's say I make this first segment 0.25. Let's say I make this next segment, next segment, I'll make 0.5. The third segment, I'll make 0.75. And the fourth segment, I will make 1 inch. Okay? This last segment is 0.5, which, if you were to add 0.25 plus 0.5, plus 0.75 plus 1, then the remainder to make up 3 inches is going to be 0.5. So this is going to pop up. This is going to overconstrain the sketch. I can't change this dimension because everything else has been established. If I add 1 plus 0.75 plus 0.5 plus 0.25, then the remainder to reach 3 inches is going to be 0.5. And so this one has to be 0.5 because we've established this. If I were to say delete this one right here, so let's say I get out of my sketching. I'm going to delete this. Now the distance from here to here is free. I can change this. I have to delete it first because it's already been over-constrained once. But now if I come in here and put it in, now I can change it because now the 3 inches is no longer an established rule. So if I want to make this 1 inch also, I can do it because I'm no longer constrained with 3 inches across this entire span. So over-constraining your sketches. Number 4, unable to edit a dimension. This is going to be very difficult for me to demonstrate for you because this has never happened to me personally. It happens to students all the time. I've seen it happen all the time. I don't know what causes it, but I do know the solution. I've already demonstrated to you why this dimension can't be edited because we already have these two. So let's say this one was gone. Let's just pretend like that one was gone. All of a sudden, sometimes, when you try and dimension something, it'll pop up with the parentheses and you can't edit it, even though you should be able to change this dimension. Because say you have this one and this one only, and this one is not established yet. It happens. I don't know why. It's a glitch. It just happens. Okay, so if you ever find yourself dimensioning something and it shows up in parentheses and you can't edit it, what you're going to do is finish the sketch. You're going to go to save your thing, close the IPT, go to File, open the IPT back up, go back into your sketch, and it'll work. So all you have to do is save the IPT, close it, reopen it, and then it'll start working again. I can't demonstrate it for you because I've never seen it happen on mine, but I've seen it happen to students a lot, and so I just wanted to let you know that happens sometimes. Number 3, creating things off the center of the origin. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. When we deal with mirroring and patterning and all sorts of, complex features that we put on things, it's very, very nice if we already have planes intersecting the middle of our object, or axes for that matter. Right now, this entire object has been created off-center. I want to show you what I'm talking about. The very first extrusion in this part was to make the black part of the body here. I'm going to edit the sketch. Okay, looking at this sketch was made off-center from the origin. The origin is right here. This is where the y-axis is, and this is where all of our planes intersect our object. It's very, very convenient if you create things right over the middle of this axis. If you do that, it'll make life a lot simpler. If you just get in the habit of doing that, it'll make all the things that you make that are symmetrical or patterned or mirrored or whatever else that you're wanting to do with your object so much simpler. So I would just recommend building your thing right down the middle every single time. If you happen to build your object and it's off-center and you want to fix it later, you can do that. Sometimes not all the features are going to cooperate with you. This one is because every single feature that I created on this is based on the previous one, meaning that I either projected geometry or I dimensioned off of something that I already put down, and therefore when I change this, so when I do change this to be centered, everything is going to fall into place perfectly. It may not work for you if you've already built everything, but if you build it from the beginning, right over the center origin, it's going to save you a lot of headaches in the future. Let me tell you how to do it now. If I go to dimension, what I want to do is figure out what the distance from here to here is. That's 2.27. So I'm going to dimension from this wall to the center point, and I'm going to make it 2.27, whoops, divided by 2, because I want it to go halfway the distance. Now it's halfway between here and here. Now I also want to center this. This is 4.49 in the top and the bottom. So I'm going to dimension from here to the top, or you could go to the bottom, whichever. And I'm going to change this to 4.49 divided by 2. And now my object is going to be centered right over the axis. So when I go to finish sketch, you're going to see the whole thing pop over. Now it's moved a little bit, but the nice thing about this now is that all of our origins are perfectly symmetrical. So my YZ plane, it cuts the iPhone right down the middle. There's my plane, cutting this thing right down the middle. The XZ plane cuts it down the middle perfectly, and the XY cut it down the middle the other direction. We also have the Y-axis cutting down the middle, Z-axis cutting down the middle, X-axis down the middle. It's just going to work out nicely. Number 3, unclosed loops. This is another one that's kind of hard to demonstrate because it's actually kind of hard for me to make this happen. But I'm just going to demonstrate something for you. Let's say I make a sketch on this face right here. And I'm going to make an arc and another arc. Actually, let me restart that. Okay, I'm going to finish the sketch. Now, if I wanted to extrude this, I can't select it. Okay, and I'm going to get to this in number 1 as well. But I can't select this individual shape right here. And the reason why is because we've got a little crisscross going on here. Okay, I can't select this shape because this arc and this arc intersect over each other. So you never want to have an arc or a loop or anything intersect and crisscross over one another. So in order to change this, what we want to do is trim these lines, and then now that's going to be accessible to us. So now I can select just the moon part, this little crescent area. But another thing is sometimes we just have too much going on. And so you either want to delete lines and just have what you want to extrude or whatever else, whatever other feature you want. You just want that line to be shown up. Or you have just too much going on. And so you want to make it so that one of your thing is completely isolated. Two things to do is delete everything that you don't want to show up. Or if you have something really intricate that you're drawing and it's not going to extrude, it just shows you like an outline of the thing. What you're going to want to do is go back into the sketch and just draw over the top of everything again. That's something that students have to do a lot, is redraw over the top of shapes. This one's pretty simple, but if we had something really complicated like that, for example, if I go to finish sketch and let's say I want to extrude this piece right here. If I go to extrude, I can't select everything because it just shows me the outlines. I can't extrude this whole shape. There's a couple problems. One is that we've got unclosed loops, like this one for example. This is not actually touching over here, and so it doesn't know that the shape closes right there. Another problem is that I've got this crisscrossing loop right here, and I've got this little piece that's hanging out in the middle. So in order to fix this, I need to go back into the sketch here. I've got to trim off these lines. If I want the thing to end right here, for example, And I'll probably even have to fix this. Maybe if I trim off right here it'll work. So now the thing is accessible. And so now I can extrude this piece right here. Now, if you're finding that you still can't extrude after trimming lines and making sure that there's no crisscrossing loops, then you may have to go back into the sketch and redraw over everything again, making sure that if you redraw over anything, that you're using the proper tool first of all, and don't use a line to make an arc. But you also want to make sure that you're locking on green each time that you make your loop. See how I didn't lock on green there? It's like way off. So if I restart here, come down here, see it's still not green, but I might think it is. I might like lock on right here with yellow, and I'm not quite there yet. So you want to make sure that you're locking on green and redrawing over your shape. And if you redraw over everything and retrace it, it'll probably work at that point. It may be tedious, but that might be the only solution for you if you've drawn something really intricate. And the number one mistake or error that I see is wrong sketch or too many sketches. So often we will go in and open up our Inventor file and maybe we have a sketch right here ready to go. And so often someone will come up here to this face and click it and say new sketch. Okay? What I've essentially done is made a blank sheet of paper with nothing on it. But a lot of times students will make a new sketch and then they'll go to dimension and then they'll try and change the dimension of a previous thing. I can't change this dimension 0.175, I can't change this 0.2, and I can't change this 0.175. So if I want to change these things, I have to make sure that I go to the right sketch. Right now I have way too many sketches going on. I've got sketch 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and nothing on a lot of them. If I want to know what's on these sketches, I can hover over them. This one has nothing on it. See, it turns red when I hover over it? That's because that's the sketch that I just created, and I don't want it, so I'm going to delete it. The only reason that you'd ever want to have multiple sketches, really, is if you were doing a sweep, a loft, or a coil. I don't think that I can think of very many other reasons that you'd want to have more than one sketch. But you usually don't need multiple sketches up. You usually do sketch, feature, sketch, feature. That's usually the pattern. So sketch 14, that's got the little crescent on it. See, that's highlighting red. But I don't really want that either. I'm going to delete it. What I want to do is edit this circle. Hover over this one. Oh, still not there because it's not highlighted. I'm going to delete that. Sketch 12. Nope, not on there either. So I'm going to delete that. And then I'll finally get to the root of the thing, which is sketch 11. See how everything's highlighted now? It's highlighting my circle. Let me go back in time and demonstrate another problem with having all these sketches. If I have all these sketches and I go to extrude, and let's say I want to extrude this circle. See how it's really hard for me to select just the circle? It's blinking on and off. This happens all the time, where something will blink on and off, and then you think you got it, and then you click it, and you're like, oh, nope, I didn't get the circle, I got the entire thing except for the little crescent. The reason that this is happening is because you've got all these sketches on top of each other, and so you've got a square, and another square, and another square, and they're all over each other, and you can't get the circle because it's consumed by this outer square, and so you can't get to it. And so there's two solutions to this. You can either go into the sketch that this thing is on, so let's say I go to sketch 11. This is where I actually can edit stuff. I can edit my dimension here because I'm in the right sketch. There's two ways to do this. I can either delete these lines, so if I right click and delete that line, right click and delete that line, now I've got a completely open system here. This thing will be really a cinch to extrude. But I still have sketch 12, 13, and 14 to worry about, so I still can't really extrude it very easily. So what I want to do is delete all those sketches. Now I'm left with just sketch 11. If I want to extrude this circle, then just having one sketch is going to make it so much easier. You don't even really usually have to delete these outside border lines if you're working with only one sketch. So now I'm going to go to extrude, and now the circle is super easy. I can pick either one of these circles really easily. It doesn't blink on and off, and so now I can extrude this circle to whatever depth I want it to go. So that is the top 10 errors or mistakes that people make with Inventor. I hope that this will assist students and other people using Inventor from creating errors that will slow down their progress. Thanks.